In the last class, we have seen what are the various types of joins. So what are joins? In joins, if we need to extract the information from more than one table, we use joins. There are a couple of joins, like we have Cartesian product or cross joins. We have inner join, natural join, self join, outer joins. There are three variations of outer joins: left outer, full outer, and right outer. So Cartesian product or cross join is a simple join in which every row from first table is joined with every other row. So it actually brings up a lot of garbage which is of no use. So we should never use a cross join. It should never be used without the conditions. So cross join can be used by you can just simply write select star from employees, like in the sense that first table cross join second table, or you can simply put a comma. So this again means a cross join. If I put a where condition here and I mention the equality condition, then it becomes a equijoin. So what is an equijoin? Equijoin are those joins where the join condition is based on equality, otherwise is a non-equijoin. How many rows are produced in a cross join? If table 1 has m rows and in table 2 has n rows, so the number of rows in the cross join would be m by n. So if we have, let's say, 2 rows in employees table and 3 rows in departments table, the number of rows in cross join would be m by n, that is 6. Then we have inner joins. So what are inner joins? Inner joins are the joins which produces the matching rows from the two table. So there should be a common column whenever we are creating an inner join, right? And on that particular column, whatever is the matching row, that is produced in the inner join. So if you see here, this is the cross join, but the common column in between these two rows was department ID. One important thing in inner join, the column names need not be the same, only the column types needs to be same, and it should logically represent the same thing. So even if, let's say, I have department ID in one table and I have let's say location ID in another table, so logically if you see, these two represents different attributes of the table. So technically it can be joined on this particular data, but logically it should not. It should represent the same information. So so the one condition which is required for inner join is that we should have a matching column, and the values for that column should be matching, right? So here we have 10 in department ID. This belongs to employees table. Then we have 10 in the departments table. So this row actually is part of the join table. Joins are created only in the memory. They are they don't hold any space in on the disk. So if when you write a query like this, select star from employees inner join department, and you also specify the column ID on which the join is created, whatever the information that is produced, that is in the memory, and you need to extract that information to for in case you need anything like that in your application, right? So we have two tables, employees and department. The way we write and join is select whatever tables or column names we need to extract from employees inner join department. Inner join, instead of inner join, you can simply write join also. Then also by default it takes it as, consider it as inner join. Every time you create an inner join, you need to create tell the column on which the join has to be created, right? So here we have employees dot dept id is equal to department dot department id. So this is again an equijoin because the join condition is based on equality, right? Then it's a good practice to give aliases or table names, table aliases, because it what is the advantage of creating the table aliases is that it makes the query run faster, and it is more readable as well. The query is readable. Now, right now we have just a small query. If it's, let's say, if the query is 5 to 7 lines containing lots of joins and subqueries, it would be really readable and easy to write if we create the aliases. And also the SQL engine runs faster if he knows exactly where to find that at those particular table, those particular columns, right? So here we have select star from employees E join department D on E.dpt ID is equal to D.d department ID. So we are creating an inner join, and it's going to produce 2 rows because there are just 2 values, matching values for these 2 columns, right? Then we have natural joins. What are natural joins? Natural joins are inner joins where the data is retrieved from the common column name. Here all natural joins are inner joins. Just one condition which is added is like that the column names on which the condition is made, they need to have the same name, right? So, and the query which produces it eliminates the duplicate column. So there is if this column would not be replicated in your join result, right? There would be just one column with the common column name. Okay. So this is the way we write natural join. Select star from employees, natural join departments, and the here if you see the number of columns had been reduced to 6 because one which is the duplicated column is not included in the join result. Then we have outer joins. What are outer joins? Outer joins gives us matching rows as well as non-matching rows depending upon what kind of outer join is that. So if we have left outer join, so it's gonna give me the matching rows from both the tables as well as the non-matching rows from the left table. So if you see here in employees table, we have one non-matching row which doesn't have any matching value in department. So here if you see, we have department ID 10, 20, and for this employee we haven't allocated any department, so it doesn't have a matching row in department table. So there is one non-matching row in the left table. So when I write the left outer join, it gives me 2 matching rows plus the one which is non-matching. So I have 3 in the left outer join, right? So if you see here, this is the left outer join, and since it doesn't have any matching rows, matching values, so for all the other things it is going to give us null, right? Then we have right outer join. The same way we write our right outer join, and it gives me the non-matching rows from the right table plus the matching rows from the 2 table. So here we have 2, and all the other values for the left table are appended with null. Then we have full outer join. So full outer join gives you the matching rows from the 2 table plus non-matching from the left table plus non-matching from the right table. So this is the kind of the result we are gonna get. Now full outer join is not same as cross product, because cross product gives me the matching from one table to, it matches with all the rows, so it doesn't take care of the matching values. And in full outer join, you still have to mention the table or the column name on which the join needs to be made. In cross join, we don't mention any common column name, right? Then we have self join. Self join is a join with itself. So if we want to extract information from the same table, and for example, you can consider the same table as an employees table and managers table as also, because all managers are employees itself, then we need to create a self join. So in today's class, we'll see how to write subqueries. So most of your queries can be written in different ways. So either it can be a join, or it could be a condition on a cross join, it could be an inner join, or it could be a subquery also, right? So we'll see for some cases subqueries perform faster, and for some cases joins run faster. So for every database we have couple of query optimization tools, and we need to find in SQL Developer, as we know that for every query there is an explain plan which tells you the exact cost of every query, so you can ensure that whatever it is running, it's the right way of doing the query, right? So you can find out whether cross like joins work for that particular query, or subquery works, right? So as the name suggests, what is a subquery? Subquery is a query within a query. So you can write single row subqueries and multiple row subqueries. For example, if I want to find which employees have salaries greater than able salary, so we need to find able salary first, and then we need to put a condition on the employees, right? So how do we write something like this? So coming back to the query, so if let's say if my question is I want to find the employees info whose salary is greater than Pat's salary, right? So Pat is one of the employees. So first how we need to break down this query into different parts, like the way we have been doing so far. So find the employees info. So we have to write select star from employees, right? Whose salary is greater than Pat's salary. So where salary is greater than let's say Pat's salary. So how do we find the Pat's salary? So Pat's salary can be find out like select salary from employees where first name is equal to Pat. So if I run this particular query, if this we run this query, it is giving me a single row answer, right? So it is producing me a single row, and it's giving me a value 6000. So I can always this would be my subquery, which needs to be executed first before I run this my outer query. So this is called the subquery, and I can actually put this into a bracket, right? And now I know that this query needs to be executed first, and once it receives an answer, this is going to be an input to the outer query. Select star from employees where salary is greater than 6000. So now we can run the whole query together. And if you see here, these are the various employees whose salary is greater than Pat's salary, which is 6000, right? So how subqueries are actually executed? The innermost query is executed first, just like the nested functions. The innermost function is executed first, and the output of that function is given to the outer function, right? The same way, innermost query is executed first and the answer is passed on to the outer query, right? So here it is called a single row subquery because the result of the subquery is a single row, just one row, right? It cannot be multiple rows. So we cannot have, let's say, we cannot have salary greater than 5 values, right? It has to be a single value. So this is called a single row subquery, right? So this is the syntax. You can select anything. There could be any outer query, but you have to ensure that the subquery results only one single row. Okay. And because this relational operator, it works only with the single row. It has to be a single value on the right side of this operator. If it's going to produce more than one value, then this operator will not work and the query is going to produce an error. For example, if I say select star from employees where department ID is equal to 50. Select star from employees where department ID is equal to 50. So let us run this subquery first and see whether it's a single row or multiple row. It's definitely a multiple row queries. There are so many people in department number 50. Now when I try to run this particular statement, it says too many values because it is expecting on the right side of this comparison operator, it is expecting a single value. So this is actually a multiple row query which needs to be dealt in a different way. So let us first do some couple of single row queries, then we will move on to how to deal with multiple row subqueries. So there are certain guidelines for using enclosed subqueries in parentheses. Place subqueries on the right side of the comparison condition. So we have placed this subquery on the right side, and you can always use subqueries instead of the tables itself. So here, because subquery is also producing a virtual table, right? So it's going to produce a table. So it can be used here itself. So I can, for example, I can write here, select star from where salary is greater than, let's say, 4,000. Okay, so how it is going to work here? So the innermost query is going to execute. So select star from employees where department ID is equal to 50. It's going to give me a table, right? And from that particular table, salary grade people who have salary greater than 4,000 would be selected. So let's try to run this query. So as we have seen there were about 45 rows for the subquery, and out of those only those have been selected where salary is greater than 4,000. So your subquery can be used instead of the table, or it can be used on the right side of the comparison operators. Okay. The order by clause in the subquery is not needed unless you are performing top-end analysis. What does this mean? See, subqueries are generally used, and they are basically an input to another query, right? So we don't have to use order by there because order by clause is used for you can say for representation of the data, right? So we don't use order by in the subquery, but you can use order by in the outer query, right? So it should be always at the outermost level, the order by clause. Use single row operators with single row subquery. So we have greater than, less than, not equal to, all these are single row operators. We have couple of multiple row operators also. We'll see how to use multiple row operators wherein we have multiple row queries. So these are single row operators: equal, equal to, greater than, equal to, not equal to. So they are expecting that all the subqueries on the right side are single row subqueries. Here if you see, we have used two subqueries in the same query. For example, selects last name, job ID and salary from employees where job ID is equal to. So this is one subquery. Again, it's going to produce me just one result, and salary greater than this query. This is again going to produce me one result, right? So I can use single row subquery anywhere which is gonna where just one value or one row is expected, right? At least, and one row and one cell. If I cannot use select job ID comma let's say last name. So what I mean to say, when I'm writing a subquery, for example, let's say find employees last name for let's say last name for all those who work for manager ID 100, right? So first we need to who work for manager ID 100. That's not going to be a subquery. Let's say who work for manager King Stephen. So this is manager's first name. So can we do it directly? We cannot do it directly. First we need to find what is the manager ID for Stephen, and then probably we will be able to find the employees who work for this particular manager. So we can start from the subquery level. So we need to divide this into various subqueries. So first let us find what is the manager ID for Stephen. So I would say select employee ID from employees, and you can always write employee ID from employees where first name is equal to Stephen, right? So let us run this. Okay, there are two people, so probably I cannot use in a subquery like this. Let's say we have Stephen King. And last name, because I need just one, is equal to King. Okay, here the employee ID is 100, so we have got the first thing, and now I want select last name from employees where manager ID is equal to what we have extracted from the subquery, right? So my subquery is going to run like this. Select last name from employees where manager ID is equal to 100. So these are all the employees who work for Stephen. So my question is, so can I write here employee ID comma let's say last name or something? Can I do that? See, here what we are doing, we are equating it against one value, right? So it is expecting just one value, one cell value. It has to be one column and one row. We cannot compare manager ID with last name. Can we do that? No, we cannot do that, right? So whenever we are writing subqueries, we have to ensure whatever the subquery is returning, that value is compatible with whatever value we are equating with, right? So I cannot write here select last manager ID is equal to select last name, because if I write this kind of query, it doesn't make sense. It has to be equated with some kind of numeric value, right? And it has to be just one, because it cannot pick two values from here, just one value. Okay, so if I try to use anything else, the query is not going to run. So the best way to run a query, use subquery, is start from the subquery, see what it is returning, and then write the outer query. Okay. So we can do a couple of questions related to subqueries. So these are some questions. So let's do a couple of them. So we have already done this. Display the last name and salary of every employee who reports to King, right? So the same question we can do with join, and the same question we can do with queries, right? So and we can figure it out which is a better way of doing this. So you can find the cost and how much time every operation is taking place, right? How much time it is taken, and then probably we can compare those two queries. Let's do some, write a query that displays the employees' number and last names of all employees who work in a department with any employee whose last name contains a N. So again, we need to divide it into two parts. We would run the subquery first. So who work in a department with any employee whose last name contains a N. So first we have to find the employee whose last name contains N, and find the department, and then probably we can do it, right? So how are we going to write the subquery? Let's copy this. Okay. So first we have to find all employees whose last name contains N. So select, let's say last name from employees where last name is like percent N percent and you can always find the department. So if you see here, even if I don't write this last name, and if I write distinct, so it's going to give me all the departments which contains any employees who work in where last name contains N, right? So we have all these department IDs. So this is basically a multi-row query. So let me first tell you how to deal with multi-row queries, and probably we can do this question. So we cannot use this in a single row because there are more than one departments. So we need the information of all the employees who work in these departments. So we need to have a query like this. Maybe we can write select employee ID and last name from employees, where, so if you remember, we have an operator called in, right? And in is going, after in we need to put certain values, so those are multiple values, so you can use in here. So this is going to give me all the employees last names, and you can actually print their department IDs also if you want. From employees, where department ID in, select this, right? So let us run this one. These are the this is the information we want. It has the employee ID, last names, and the departments which have been there in this certain subquery. So this is the way here. If you see, this is in can be used with multi-row subquery. Here we are not comparing just the one value, we are comparing with multiple values. So how does it work? It works like where department ID is equal to 80 or department ID is equal to 50 or department ID equal to 60, 100, 20 and 10. So these are all the values which can be put. It creates a kind of a set, and then you can do the operations. Okay. So there are actually two more multiple row subquery operators. So we'll see what are those. We can use group functions also, because group functions are also producing this one row and one column, just one value, right? Select minimum salary from employees is going to produce me just one value. That's the reason I can use it in with this equal to operator. Had it been a group ID, like say I would say select min salary from employees group by department ID, again it would be a multiple row subquery, and then I have to use some multiple row subquery operator. I won't be able to use equal to or greater than, all those kind of things. Let's do another query. Okay. Okay, create a query to display the employee numbers and last names of all employees who earn more than average salary. So here, what is my subquery? What I have to find in the subquery first? Here my query is, first I have to find what is the average salary, right? Then only I would be able to find the rest of the part, right? So I would say here select average salary from employees, right? It's going to produce me one row and one column. So this is my average salary. So I want to display the employees numbers and last names, so of all employees who earn more than average salary, right? So how would I write here? Select employee ID comma last name from employees where salary greater than whatever we have got from this subquery. Right, so let us run this. These are the employees whose salary is greater than the average salary. Okay. Let's do some more and let's see what are the various multiple row operators. So we have seen one which is called in, then we have some others also. So if you see here, we can use the subqueries with any particular value, like here minimum salary greater than this. So here it is also producing single row. So just remember, we can use anything on this part. If it is greater than, then we can use a single row query on the right side. Okay. Here we are, this is a wrong query. The reason it is a wrong query, can anybody tell me? Because my subquery is fetching more than one row. It's a multiple row query and I cannot use equality operator with that, right? So either I have to use in, or there are some other equality operators. So we'll see what are the various other equality operators. One we have seen in, then we have any, and we have all. In means, let's say equal to any member. Any can, and all can be used with greater than and less than. For example, here we have the subquery is resulting me three values, 9,000, 6,000 and 4,200, right? Then what does it say? It says select the information of all the employees whose salary is less than any of these. So whose salary is less than 9,000, or salary less than 6,000, or salary less than 4,200. So any means the OR operation on the sets of values. Okay. Then we have all. All means AND operation. All means salary less than 9,000 and salary less than 6,000 and salary less than 4,200. So let's do one of these queries. For example, here I want to find employees info for all employees whose salary is say greater than salary of any employee in department, let's say 80. So what is the question here? First, let us try to understand the question. Find employees info for all employees whose salary is greater than salary of any employee in department number 80. So let's say I want, let me explain. Select, let's say, employee ID, comma, salary from employees. Okay, and let me add department ID also. So my question is, see here, let's see who all are there in department 80. So we have these people, we have 145 to so many people in there in the department 80, right? So I want the employees information whose salary is greater than any employee, right? Any of these. So it has to be, what is the minimum value of minimum salary of any employee in department 80? So it is, I think it is 7,000, right? No, it is 6,200. 6,100. Yeah. So 6100 is the minimum salary. So I want employees information where the minimum salary is 6100. So how can I do that? So I would say select employee ID, salary, department ID from employees where salary is greater than any. Select select salary from employees where department ID is equal to 80. And in these type of things, you can always add distinct so that the values are not repeated. So if I run just the subquery, so these are the distinct values of the salaries. And when I say greater than any, so that means salary greater than 11,000 or salary greater than 9,000 or salary greater than 13,500. So let us run this query again. So if you see here, these are all the employees who have salaries greater than the any of the salaries in that department. And if we see that 6200 was the minimum salary, so anybody who has having more than 6200 is included in this result. Now let us just little modify this query. Instead of any, let's say I want the employees information for all employees whose salary is greater than all employees in department 80. So the salary has to be, I want the employees whose salary is greater than all the employees in department 80. So what is the maximum salary? And it has to be greater than that. So here what, instead of any, I would do all. Instead of any, I would say all, because all means salary greater than 7,300 and salary greater than 6,900 and salary. So let's see how many employees now comes under this. So we have just 3 employees whose salary is greater than all the employees, right? It is the maximum. So it is more than the person who is getting the maximum salary in the in department number 80. Okay. So I hope multiple query operators are clear, and we can have null values also. So if there are no values, then it is taken as null. So here no queries would be selected because the where condition is not satisfied, right? So here if I say select manager ID from employees who doesn't have any manager, so probably no query would be selected. Not in means just the opposite. So it could be possible that your subquery is not producing any result, or it is producing any result but the condition is not satisfied. So that anything can be used in subqueries. Okay. Then there are certain set operators, set operations also. So let's first see what are the various set operations we know and how to use those set operations in relation with the tables. So if I say, you must have heard of union intersection, right? So let's say there is a set A with these values, let's say 1, 2, 5, 7, and set B is equal to 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. Then tell me what is A union B, then what is A union all B, what is A intersection B, A minus B, B minus A. So A union B means all the elements which are in A or in B, right? And here duplicates are eliminated. So A union B would fetch me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. A union all B means all the elements of A and all the elements of B duplicates being repeated, right? So here A union all B is 1, 2, 3, then we have 4, then 5, 5 2 times, then we have 7 2 times, and then we have 9. Okay, then A intersection B means we have common in A and B, so we have 2 common, we have 5, comma 7. A minus B means those who are present in which are present in A but not in B. So is there anything which is present in A but not in B? Yes, we have 1 and 2 which are present in A but not in B. Then B minus A which are present in elements which are present in B but not in A. So we have 3 and we have 4 and we have 9. So these are the 3 elements which are present in B but not in A. So are we clear on these operations? So we can apply all these operations on tables also. So let's see what does it mean. So these are a couple of operations which can be represented using Venn diagrams. This is A union B. If you see here, only once the common elements are repeated. So this is A union B. If both are included, like if the duplicates are allowed, then it is going to be A union all B. A union all B is always faster if you don't want distinct rows, right? So we should use A union all B to make it run faster. Then A intersect B means if there are 2 tables and which have the common rows. Then A minus B, rows from A which are not there in B, right? That gives me A minus B. And here if you see here the matching is on the rows, on the complete row. You are not matching on a one column, right? So whenever you are doing operations, set operations, the 2 tables, you can say the columns which you are selecting, the number of columns and the corresponding types has to be same of the 2 tables. So when do we use set operators? We'll know in a while from now. We'll do some examples on set operators. In this course, we have 2 tables. If you see here, there is the employees table and there is one job history table. Job history table has employee ID, start date, end date, job ID, department ID. This table is basically used when any employee change, his title is changed. So his job ID is changed. So the previous details are automatically transferred to this job history table. If you see the data, so we have this particular employee 101 who changed his job titles twice. There is one 102 whose previous job was IT prog, and probably now the job title is ADVP, right? So people who have changed their jobs, their information is being transferred into job history. So if you see here, if I'm trying to create and do any sort operations on any of the tables, the corresponding the column names should have to be same, and the whole row is matched for all the values, not a single row, the whole row is matched. Union operator, as we seen the rows in table A or in table B, and duplicates, if there are any common rows, they are eliminated. Okay, so this is the way we do the union operation. Select employee ID comma job ID from employees, union, select employee ID, job ID from job history. So there are two things which needs to be taken care of. Here there are how many columns? Two columns in the first selection. There are two columns in the second selection. So number of columns in these two uh, tables on which the set operations needs to be done has to be exactly the same. Second thing, the type, the data type for the corresponding columns has to be same. You cannot change the order. I cannot write select job ID comma employer ID, because here the matching is on the whole row, right? So the corresponding data type should also be same, and logically it should also represent the same thing. So employee ID, here it is also employee ID. So what is it is displaying? It is displaying the current and previous job details of all employees. Okay, display each employee only once. So if there are any employees whose detail are just exactly the same in these two, just once their information would be displayed, right? So here if you see here, the result is going to be like this: employee ID 100, 101, and these are the previous values. So the and if you, I can run this query for you here. Display the employees info who have changed their job positions. So I want people who have who are employees table actually contains information who are currently working with their current job titles. History means people with their previous job titles. So I want people who both of them, right? So information from of their previous job titles as well as their current. So what shall I write? Select employee ID comma job ID from employees, union, select employee ID comma job ID from job history. Okay. And if you see here, there would be, it won't show the repeated values, but it would show some employees whose information like whose job titles have changed. So let me see for all. So if you see 114 employee, initially it was PU man and now it is ST clerk. So we have couple of employees for employee ID 101 also. Earlier, 3 times actually. The current is ADVP. The previous was AC account, AC manager, and ADVP. And generally, most of the times, whenever you're doing union operations, the result is automatically sorted on the first column of the query. So employee ID is basically the primary key, and it is the first column also. So and one more thing, the headings, like the column headings would be given by whatever the column heading of for the first table. So if I write here, given Elias here, let's say I give her EMP ID, and here I give title. So these names would be taken. You can run the query again. So EMP ID and title are taken, right? So this information from the first table is taken, right? Now if let's say if there any information which is repeated, so I'll do union all. Okay, so here you will still find some information if it is repeated, but I don't think we have anything repeated here, because job history actually contains only those titles which have been changed. So I don't think there would be any repeated values. So repetition means the whole record is repeated. So the combination is repeated. So I don't see any combination repeated here in this query. So we can do certain other operations also. For example, here union all we have seen, including the duplicates. Intersect returns that are common in both queries. Display the employee IDs and job IDs of those employee who currently have a job title that is same as their job title when they were initially hired. That is, they changed jobs but have now gone back to doing their original jobs. Generally, it doesn't happen this way. For example, let's say I am hired in a company as an account manager, and then I change my job title to VP, and then I move back to account manager. So because my information will go to job history only if I changed my job IDs, right? So let us see if it is there here also. Okay, so there are 2 employees who started their job IDs with some job ID, and they changed their job IDs, and then they have moved back to their original one. So if you see, I can show you the job history data also. 176, okay. Originally it was SA rep, then it changed to SA man, and currently again it has gone back to SA rep, right? So this is the kind of information you can get from like the common in values in 2 tables, and just make sure the common values are on both, so employee ID and job ID, the combination is matched, the whole row is matched, right? Not only just one value. When I add department ID, it is giving me just one value, because probably in the previous one the department ID must have changed, right? So that's the reason for the other employee it is not showing, for 100 it is not showing. So the matching is always done on the whole row. Then we have a minus operator. So display the employees and those employees who haven't changed their job even once. So what does that mean? They haven't changed their jobs. That means the information is there in employees table, but it is not in job history. So the question is, find employees who haven't changed their job titles even once. So I want information which is present here in employees table but not in history. So I would say select employee ID from employees minus select employee ID from job history. Okay. Right. So these are all the employees who haven't changed their jobs. Now let's say I want to display their names also, right? But we don't have names in job history. So to do this, what I can do, I can add a dummy column here, right? So I can write here, let's say last name. And here I can write a last name is of type char, right? So I can write here to char null. Okay, so I have two columns with their these names, and I have created a dummy column so that it matches, right? So let us run this again. Now we can get the last names also. Okay. So just to extract more information from one table, you can always append dummy data with null values, and just ensure to use this conversion functions. So if it is a character, then you need to write to char. If let's say I want to display the department ID also, then I have to write here to number null. Okay, I can do that. Okay, and you can still use order by clause, although they are always sorted on the primary key, but it can appear only at the very end of the statement. So it gives you the result, and then it produces the order according to whatever you have given the value. And it always accept the column name aliases from the first select statement. So as I have told you, only from the first statement it will accept the aliases. If I write any aliases here, it won't accept. It will accept the aliases from the first table itself. Okay. So to make it here, see here, we are doing on employees and departments using the union operator, display the department and hire date for all employees. So we need to add the, let's say, location name also. So this operation can be done using two ways. You can use joins as well as set operator. So let's do it using both and see which is of lower cost. So first let's do this using a join. Display the department ID, location and hire date for all employees. So what are the what are the tables which we need to use if I want to create the join? we have to find the department ID, location, and hire date. So hire date is from, can be, we can get from employees table. Department ID and location, we would get from the departments table, right? So we would be writing something like this. First, let me write aliases. Employees E, join departments D, and select E dot hire date, then D dot department ID, and D dot department ID, right? And what is a joining condition? What is the common value or common column? That is a department ID. So I would write E dot department ID is equal to D dot department ID. Okay. And let us run this query. Okay, sorry. And location, we need to find the location. Okay, so this query has been fetched. So this is the hire date and ID and location for 106 employees. And let us do the same thing using set operations. And this query actually, let's see what was the cost. Let me run this again. So the total cost was 6. It says it is using sorting, join 4, and it is using department ID. It is using some index also. And let's start do it with set operations. So what we need to get from employees, we need to get department ID and the hire date. So I can write here department ID comma hire date from employees union select department ID comma to date null, because we don't have hire date in departments. Then we have location ID, and here we need to add a dummy column. So location ID is a number value, so to number null, and we can give an alias location ID. You can write here as from departments. Okay, so again it's giving me the same information. So I have hire date, location ID, and here now the query is taking, let's say, this is taking a lot of so here the join operation was much better as compared to this, because here union all So you can actually do union all, which is much faster as compared to union. And let's see now. Now see, using union all, the cost has been reduced to 6. So if you see, union all is always performance wise much better as compared to union operator, and you are still getting the same information. Nothing else here. So we have seen union. So this is going to see here, using the union operator, display the employee ID, job ID and salary of all employees. Here instead of 2cat, they are displaying 0, because in job history there is no need. So you can, depending upon you, what you want to display. So you can either write 2 number 0, 2 number null, or you can write 0, but it's going to produce this kind of result. You can also control the order of rows. This is actually just a fun part. Most probably you won't be doing this. You can create a dummy column name as the name A dummy. No print means this column will not be printed on the screen. So there would be still be just one column. So no print means it's a dummy column, and you can give any name. Then let me just copy paste this query. So what it is saying that, see here there are 3 tables. Select Sing as this thing from dual. Then this is the second table. This is the third table, and you can give the order as 1, 2, 3, and say that order by A dummy. So this is the common column name that you have provided, and you can give the order name, and if you see here the order is being in that particular form. So this is a kind of fun thing. In my career I have never used this column, but this is definitely important. Sometimes you need to add a column which needs not be displayed. Okay. Let's move on and let's do another one. We can do a couple of questions related to this, and then we'll start with DML rows, DML commands. List the department IDs for departments that do not contain the job ID ST clerk using set operators. Let's do this one. So list the department ID for departments that do not contain the job ID ST clerk. First, we need to select the department IDs. From. So tell me what table I need to use here. Where would I get the information that in which department what job ID is present? I will get that information only from employees table, right? So I would say select department ID that do not contain the job ID ST clerk, right? So first I would get all the departments from the department departments table minus select department ID from employees where job ID is equal to ST clerk. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm getting first let's try to run this one, and let's see how many department IDs come here. So we have all the ST clerks in department ID 50. So I want all the other department IDs. So I would just run the query again. So if you see here, 50 is missing, right? So these are all the departments. These departments do not contain job ID ST clerk, right? What is the other way of doing this? So let's see how much it cost. This cost 6, right? And tell me another way of doing the same query without set operators. Okay, so what are we going to do? So we'll do here select department ID from departments D join employees E, and join would be on D dot department ID, and here what would be the join? So here I want the do not contain the job ID history. So I can write here D dot department ID is equal to E dot department ID and E dot job ID is not equal to ST clerk, right? And here I can write D dot department ID. Okay, and we can, if you want, you can use a distinct here also. So it removes the repeated values. And if you see here, E dot job ID is not equal to ST clerk. Then why 50 is coming here? So this actually query is producing a different result because here it is giving me all the but I have used AND condition, right? And E dot job ID not in ST clerk. It is not in ST clerk, but it is SH clerk. So this also going to produce me. This is actually not producing the right result. So I have to actually here also I have to do a minus. It should not, the department ID itself should be excluded. Okay, so I cannot do actually this query using joins. So I can do only using minus, because minus takes care of the intersection values also. Join includes the matching values, right? So can you do you understand why this is getting this result? Minus excludes matching rows, right? Here joins, inner joins. So inner joins or any like even outer joins, all the joins include matching rows. So anyway, we have to do a minus operation to get rid of the intersected value. So that's the reason this is not producing the right result. Not every query can be used, converted into a join, but there are definitely couple of queries which could have been done. So let's do some more queries. Produce a list of jobs 10, 50 and 20 in that order. Display job ID using set operators. Let's do this one. Distinct cannot avoid because distinct is actually used on one column. If there are a couple of rows with different second value, then distinct cannot be used. Okay, distinct can be only used with just one column. So let's do this one. Produce a list of jobs for departments 10, 50 and 20 in that order. Display job ID and department ID. So what we have to do, we have to do a union operation in which we would be getting the jobs for department 10, then 50 and then 20. So I would be writing here select job ID, comma, department ID, from employees where department ID is equal to 10, then union, select again the same thing, and here it would be 50, union all, and here it would be 20. And let us run this. So we have all these job IDs along with their this thing, and if you want you can use union, so all these repeated rows would be eliminated. So you have all these 6 rows here. So we have 10, 50 and 20, and if you want to display in this order, again you have to put a no column, and you can actually do that also. So for this 10 you want 1 and say X, then this 2X, 3X, and then you can say order by X. If you see here now the columns are returned in this particular order, right? So by creating this kind of thing, you can actually give orders. You can do sorting in your own way. So what this result you want to display first, or this, that can be decided. Okay, so this was something which I wanted to cover in set operations, and let's do one more question and then we'll move on to DML commands. Okay, we have write a compound query that lists the following: last names and department. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, so command that lists the following: last names and department ID for all employees from the employees table, regardless of whether or not they belong to any department or not. So here actually we don't even need to use set operations. I don't know. So here I can write a class name, comma, department ID from employees, right? So there would be 107 rows. I really don't need a set operation here. Department or not, department ID, department name of all departments from the departments table, regardless of whether or not they have employees working in them. Okay. So compound list means I want union select last name. We don't have last name, so here I would write to char null and then department ID, and then I need to write here department name, and here we don't have department name, so I would be writing to null, to char null. And I need to give an alias, otherwise this would be the head column heading, so I don't want to use that from departments. Okay, so this is going to give me a compound query that gives the last name and department ID, and plus it is going to give me the department names for those department IDs also. So although it won't look beautiful, but this is what is expected. First 107 rows from the first table, and then it's going to give me the rows from the second table. Okay, so let's give me a compound list, and if you see, yeah, the cost for this was 8. And can you do the same query using joins also? So you can write here select from employees E comma join departments D on E dot department ID is equal to D dot department ID, and select E dot last name comma E dot department ID comma D dot department name. and let us run this query. Department name. Okay, and this is how much is the cost here. Here the cost again is 6, so definitely it's definitely a better way of doing the fetching the same information. Okay. So now, since now we have seen all the select statements, although the select statement is considered to be a part of DML, which is data manipulation language, but theoretically speaking or technically speaking, it doesn't manipulate anything. You are just retrieving the information from the database, right? So what are the various other statements in DML statements wherein you actually change your database in certain way? So you can add new rows, you can modify the existing rows, or you can remove the existing rows. So there are three ways. We use insert operation to add new rows, and to modify we use update, and to remove the existing rows we use delete command. Then DML statements also are formed, when you combine certain DML statements, they form transaction. So what does transaction means? It's basically a group of logically related statements. So this is again an interview question. What does a transaction means? A transaction is a group of logically related DML statements. So you must be aware of your transactions with ATM, right? So if you are, let's say, if you are withdrawing some amount, let's say $100 from an account, so what would be the various steps that you would be using in this particular transaction? So first would be you would be logging into your account, right? Then how do you log into your account? You provide your PIN, right? You first insert your card and then provide your PIN. Then it does the verification, and it gives you certain options. Let's say then you want to withdraw, so you will click on withdraw, and then it tells you how much amount you want to withdraw, right? So let's say you say $100. Then what it happens, your balance is reduced by $100, right? So account balance is reduced by $100, and then you log out. Okay, so these are the actually two steps into one transaction, and then sometimes it asks for, do you want another transaction? So if you say yes, then again you can go through. So in that particular transaction you can see your account summary, probably you can withdraw more amount, you can do the deposit. So every one of these operation is a different transaction. So here, if you see, if you correlate with the SQL query, so what is happening behind the screen? When you are logging into an account, so you are basically checking the user ID and the password, right? So probably there would be some table in the database which contains the user information, and that user ID is they are getting from your ATM card, and your PIN is whatever you are entering on the screen. So you would be having some what would be the query for doing the verifications? You would be saying like select user ID, comma, let's say password from some table, say user table, where user ID is equal to, let's say 1234. This is your account number, right? And password is equal to let's say 0001. Okay, so if the result of this particular query is a not null, that means you really get one row, then that means it is a valid user ID and password. Is that correct or not? So this is the first step. And how about this one? Account balance is reduced by $100. So what operations have been made in the database? So first, the account balance, the current balance is retrieved. So maybe select, let's say, balance from account, right? And then it has to be checked that whether this balance is greater than $100. Okay, so if it is not greater than $100, probably there would be some error. So first is select statement, and when if this retrieves an amount which is greater than $100, then probably there would be second query, update account, set balance, and here actually this should be where user ID is equal to 1234, and set balance is equal to balance minus 100, where user ID is equal to 1234, right? So after you are done with this two statements, then your transaction is complete. So what does a transaction mean? There are certain properties which are associated with all the transactions. These are called ACID properties of a transaction. So what does ACID properties means? A stands for atomicity. So we have, I think, discussed it in the first class also. Then C stands for consistency. I stand for isolation. And D stands for durability. What does atomicity means? Atomicity means a transaction is all done or nothing. A transaction is all done or nothing. What does it mean? That either both of these values or both of these DML statements would be executed, otherwise they would be reverted back as nothing has been done, right? So this is called atomicity. So it is done in its entirety. So the transaction, let's say I want to transfer $500 from account A to account B. So my transaction will not be completed until I deduct $500 from account A and I increment $500 in account B. So my transaction cannot be completed. If for some reason it is, let's say, there is some power failure or some system failure in middle of the transaction, then it has to roll back. So that is the reason every database has this option, rollback option. Okay, so only once the transactions are committed, they can never be undone. Then we have consistency. Consistency means there are rules which needs to be followed by all the transactions, right? So what does that mean? These rules are actually implemented by using constraints. And so what are the various constraints? So we have primary key constraint, we have check constraints, Then we have foreign key constraints, right? So we have default values. So these are all the rules which needs to be followed by all the transactions. So if let's say I am the balance, the logically the application says that balance can never go below $500 for a particular type of account, right? So it needs to be followed by all the accounts, not only just one account. For all the accounts, for all the transactions, this rule would be followed, right? So we need to follow all the rules. So every transaction needs to be followed, need to be consistent. Then we have isolation property. Isolation property means every transaction is isolated from other transaction. Okay. Then there is degrees of isolation. There is first degree, second degree, third degree of isolations. For example, let's say I am doing a read operation on a particular table. So I'm checking my account balance. At the same time, exactly at the same time, let's say my husband is also checking the account. So they should always see the similar amount. Another thing, this is read degree, right? So then we have read and write. For example, I am updating my I am depositing some amount into my account. At the same time, another person is logging into my account and just see what is the current balance. Unless and until that particular transaction is committed, he should not see the changes made in the database. So this is again another kind of isolation. That means what he is doing is isolated from the what other person is doing, and it should not it should be consistent. It should keep the whole database integrated, right? So these are called read and write degrees of isolation. So we have write and write, like Oracle also produces certain kinds of locks. If I'm making a change in a particular row, it puts a lock on that column so that any other person cannot, any other user cannot make transaction on the same row on the same column. So database, although these kind of, you can say, consistency issues, they can be handled at database level, they can be handled at the application level, and they can be handled at the client level also. So database level is the, you can say, the most intricate ones, because at the same time thousands of and probably millions of users might be using the same table, right? So it needs to be very reliable. So that's the reason Oracle database, if when we saw the various features of Oracle, it is reliable, it is consistent. And now with the advent of grid technology, like we can duplicate the database, these constraints are really important to hold, right? Then durability. What does durability means? Durability means once the changes are done, they are there forever. So they can never be undone. They become permanent. So even if there is any power failure, even if there is some transaction, once the transaction is committed, if there some database is let's say down, so some server is down, or some let's say your machine crashes, or whatever happens, the changes are done completely. They can never be undone. So what happens is, like once it is committed, as we know that the changes which we have made, those are there in the memory, they become permanent, and they are written onto the disk, right? So once they are written onto the disk, they everybody is going to see those changes. So all these ACID properties, they work in together. So a transaction is all done. That means if it is completely done, then it is not, it cannot be undone. So this and this works together. And again, consistency rule means whenever we are doing any transaction, they need to follow all the rules. So these are the famous ACID properties of all the transactions, and they are applied only on DML statements, because DDL statements are always committed. You can never roll back a DDL statement. So ACID properties of transactions holds only for DML statements, right? So as we have seen, there are a couple of DML statements that we can use. So you can add a new row to a table. So how to add a new row? So there are two ways. So there is an insert command, insert. Let's say I want to add, I want to find something which has, oh, regions table. Let's say regions table. So we have region ID and region name. Okay, so I want to add insert into regions values. Let's say region ID. So I have to see what type. It is numeric type. So I can write, let's say 111, and region, let's say South Bay. Okay, and semicolon. And if you see here, the result is one row is inserted. So what we have to see here, that the values which I'm writing in values, they should follow the same order of the columns as there it appears in the table. If I change the order, it won't work, right? So there could be some here, if you see in regions, region name can be nullable. So I can insert any other row also, and I can choose the second column to be null. So I can write here regions values 1112 null. So this I don't want to give right now. So I can use null to insert this value. So it says one row inserted. Okay. Now let's say I want to insert an employee, and it is using department ID as the foreign key. So there has to be that department ID present if I want to insert an employee. So let's see what happens if I try to insert into employees with some other department ID. And here I don't want to actually write all the values, so I can change the order if I want, but I have to mention what order needs to be given. So I can write, let's say employee ID. So you can say employee ID and last name, and what are the various other email. Let's see what are the various not nullable values. So employee ID, last name, email, hire date, and job ID. These cannot be not null. So whenever I'm inserting, I have to ensure that these values, I provide values for these values. So I can have hire date, then job ID, and email. Okay. Now I can give the values. Nine nine nine, and let's say I want to give sys date as the hire date and job ID as this. And here you can always change the order, so I can write employee ID at the end, because here I'm mentioning in what order I'm giving the values. So I can run this. Here if you see, we have a foreign key. If you see here, a foreign key value has no matching primary key value. Job ID, if you see here, is basically a foreign key. Here we see the constraints. Let's see the constraints. Job ID is a foreign key which is referring to the job ID in the jobs table. Since QA manager is not a job ID present in the job table, I cannot insert this value. So this actually takes care of which property of the transaction, ACID properties. Which ACID property is taking care of this? Consistency. C. Whenever I'm doing any DML operation, it needs to be consistent. All the rules needs to be followed. So I cannot insert a job ID with this value unless and until I insert the same value in jobs table. Right? So we have to ensure that whenever we are inserting a row, it does not violate any of the constraints. So we already created one constraint job K, which is a foreign key constraint, that this particular column is dependent on the primary key of jobs. So here, if this, let's run this particular subquery. This is basically giving me null. So when I run this query now, let's run this. And it says I cannot insert null values. Again, it is violated because job ID is not nullable and it is not in inserting this. So again, my value is in this thing is not allowing me. So I have to ensure that this particular value is present there. So if I write here st clerk, then it is going to allow me. Now it says one row is inserted. Okay.